Up until today, there's only been one Republican to throw their hat into the ring for the Republican nomination to run against Governor Walz, who has not officially announced that he is running for re-election, although he has been actively fundraising. This half hour, we're talking about everything from Dr. Jensen's controversial statements regarding the pandemic, the way it's been handled, and his time as a Republican senator, which ended just this past January. Our conversation begins tonight with his announcement 2 years ago that he was completely done with politics. You're only 2 years into office. Politics, you and Mary decided just wasn't going to be in your future anymore.
After 2 years, I was shocked at the gridlock, the bizarre behavior. I was really disappointed in the lack of what I would consider intellectual curiosity.
On both sides.
On both sides. I think we were oftentimes told there will be no discussion on this topic. Why not? Because we don't know where it'll go exactly. Well, that's sort of what a discussion is. And then there'd be, well, if we do this, then this will happen. And if this happens, then this will happen. And that's not what we want to have happen. I said, so we can have hundreds or thousands of people come down to the Capitol and express their voice, and we're not going to discuss it. We're not going to have hearings, nothing. And they said, yeah. So I just felt like a lot of it was a waste of time. You could spend literally 11 hours at the Capitol, and when you drove home at night, you could say, I maybe got 20 minutes of work done.
One of the most contentious battles during your time in the Senate was when you supported and co-sponsored, I think, the bill for legalizing recreational marijuana.
Well, I think they knew I was a big advocate for the medical marijuana program. Okay. And I thought that that had worked out well. I have a lot of patients that have benefited from it. And what I really was intrigued about with marijuana was the young kids. The kid that, and I've had patients where they'll get caught with a joint in their pocket at the age of 19, and it'll hang around on their record. And they just made a dumb mistake, and they weren't selling it. And my view is we can decriminalize some of this. We can expunge records, and I told Senator Franzen that. But in terms of being ready to legalize recreational marijuana, I had no interest in it. But I do think that if and when that happens, because other states are doing it, I don't think it should be done by the legislature. I think it should be done by the state. It should be an amendment. Have a thorough discussion, maybe in 2026.
How about let the voters decide?
Exactly. We've got 5.5 million Minnesotans. There's no reason to have 200 biased, prejudiced legislators make the decision.
My conversation continues now with Dr. Scott Jensen, former Minnesota senator who just officially announced today that he is running for governor. What happens to your practice should you win?
I'd have to cut back.
You need a large number of people within the party. You would run it as a Republican, correct?
Yes.
You would seek the Republican nomination?
I would. I'm going to seek the Republican endorsement. That's the only thing I'm focusing on. And I'm going to tell Republicans, we have a 25 race losing streak. 25 times in a row we've lost statewide races. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and hoping for a different result. So I want the endorsement. I want them understanding that I am a good, solid conservative, but I will take a page from President Trump's playbook, and we will have the hard discussions, and we're not going to dodge them.
Aren't you afraid to even say that name? Sometimes it could be a political...
President Trump?
Yeah.
No, I'm not afraid to say President Trump. I mean,
because there are Republicans who won't.
I understand that, and I don't have to. If you ask my wife what she likes about me, she's not going to say, I like 100% of that guy. She's going to say, on what day? And then she's going to say, that day, that's usually a 95% day. On another day, she might say, just about everything. On another day, she'd say, less than 50%. President Trump did a lot with reform, regulations, policies, Supreme Court justices, economy. He drove the dialogue. He made America have conversations that were uncomfortable, whether you're talking about NATO, NAFTA, DACA. This is what he did. When he told NATO, you got to pay your fair share, people didn't want to hear that. But after it got done, he thought, everybody said, gee, that's sort of a reasonable idea. So I'm not going to shy away from his name, President Trump got a lot done.
And in the beginning, so many people liked the fact that he wasn't a politician, and that helped him gain great support. Is that your philosophy, that you are not a politician?
I think it'd be hard to put me into the cubbyhole of being a politician. I think that I would rather have people think of me as sort of an authentic, outspoken outsider who tends to look at things skeptically and who doesn't mind having people disagree with them.
You already have a campaign against you.
I do.
And it started last week when you called me and said, we're not announcing this, we'll do it next week, mum's the word, so that we could line up this interview. Mum was the word for me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How'd it get out? And the campaign started against you right away.
It did. But there's value in letting bygones be bygones. The people who leaked it, they know who they are. We may or may not have a suspicion, but we're not going to let that drive our behavior.
Does it make a difference to have a campaign running against you already in this early?
Iron sharpens iron. It's fine. I mean, I'm going to have people come from the hard far right, pretty skeptical of me. I'm going to have people from the hard far left. Oh, I've already seen that. It only took them a couple hours to call me a COVID denier, even though I donate my plasma for COVID patients, and I had COVID, and my wife had COVID, but I'm still a COVID denier. I tell many of my patients they should get the vaccine. I tell others I don't know that they need to. So
they call you dangerous.
They do. They call me dangerous. That might be the truth if I'm hunting pheasants. And the pheasant should say I'm dangerous. But they still have a pretty good chance of surviving.
But this has become so politicized. And I was afraid to even talk about it because we have talked about it so much, because you have taken such a hard line. You have been so outspoken that I thought we've talked about it so much. I just want to kind of stick to some other issues. But you can't not talk about this.
Amen.
Because people have called you names and a liar.
Yeah, they've called me a liar and a quack. And
tried to discredit you.
I understand that. And a failed senator. I'm not sure why I failed, but I was a failed senator. But I think that's where we're at today. And I honestly think people are starting to see through that on both sides of the aisle. I think people are hitting their fill of that. And our campaign's going to be different. It's not going to be cookie cutter approach. This is what you do. If that's what you do, then we wouldn't have done an embargo a week ahead of time. We did that so that the press could know that we were going to try to set up a big launch this week with lots of different news sources involved. We tried to say yes to as many as we could. This was a point of being decent and respectful of the press. And a one-week embargo ended up being too long. But actually, the embargo was broken within 3 hours. So I don't know if we could have even done a 3-hour embargo, but it teaches us something. We'll learn. We'll learn on the way.
Does that show you that people view you as a pretty big threat?
I think Reggie Jackson said in one October when he was in the World Series, he said, the fans don't boo you if you're nobody. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I think the first night Governor Walz was out there saying, did you see who's running? We can't let this guy anywhere near the mansion. You better send us some money. Nice try. Honestly, if people want to see something different other than Governor Walz, they'll pay attention. And the only way we're going to do it is if people say, I'm going to get on board. I'm going to go to drscottjensen.com and I'm going to look him over and I'm going to think about being a part of a groundswell of support. And if they want to do that, then we've got a chance. But in a blue state like ours, if people are just going to sit on the sidelines, nothing's going to change. If we just keep running the same kind of candidate, why would we even think that we have a ghost of a chance of winning?
My last point for this conversation, hindsight is 20/20. And when you look back at your time in the Senate and you talk to your wife and the personal side of this, what worries you the most? Because we can't foresee the future, therefore we can't stop the inevitable. But I'm somebody, and I think most people are, who doesn't want to look back with regret. Is there anything that you and Mary have talked about that you can share with me that you think, I just don't want to have the regret? Would not running be a regret?
Well, when I talked to former Governor Tim Pawlenty about that, he said, you know, Scott, it seems to me that when we reach the end of our lives, it's not usually the things that we failed at that trouble us, it's usually the things that we didn't try. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. If there's a regret I have over the last 4 or 5 years, it would probably be just that there have been family dynamics that have been tested. They've been tested by politics, they've been tested by COVID, and maybe if I were wiser, I could have helped our family navigate that better. But it's hard to be wise about something you've never confronted before. So you just have to take your lumps and try to do better tomorrow.
Now for my conversation with Dr. Jensen's wife, Mary, who he says was the most important factor in his decision to get back into politics. When the Senate discussions started before he ran for office, did you think, this is crazy, but this is great? Or did you think, oh, God, no, please don't do this? What was your first reaction?
Definitely the latter. When Scott's friend came to say, we really think you should run for the Senate seat, I just looked at Scott and I said, no way. I said, we are not into politics. When I married you, I know your dad was a politician. He was in the Senate, he was a judge, he was in the House. I said, but that's not my background, and we stay away from politics. And he said, fine. I said, good. So we just figured we were going to go on our life that way. So that's really where we thought we were going.
And that didn't happen remotely.
No. But just the thought that we had about so many things, and should he do it, I thought that he could make a difference because he has a whole different idea of what politicians do. It's a short-term thing. You come in, do what you can, and you leave. And so for that reason, I said, yeah, we can do 4 years of our life with that. Let's go for it. So I did.
And then the discussion with you and the decision to not seek another term.
That was
that
great.
A great relief for you?
That was a great relief. You got it. That was a great relief. It's like you did your job.
And then COVID hit.
Yes.
But besides the pandemic, how has the last 6 months been for you? Not the pandemic plays into it, but the personal side of talking about running for governor, inside for you, how difficult has that been to either support him or to not be able to change his mind?
Exactly.
So walk me through
that. Initially, again, I said, absolutely not. We did your 4 years, you were a Senate, we're done.
Does he listen to you usually?
Sometimes. But as I heard the people talking and encouraging him to run and giving the reasons why he should run, I realized that if somebody was going to run from the Republican Party, I truly in my heart believe that he's the one person that can make a difference and run as a Republican and beat a Democrat.
But you've had even a small glimpse inside politics with him being in the Senate to see how people will manipulate, try to change, try to sway, and use tactics that are difficult. To watch someone we love be persuaded or used that way has got to be harder on us as wives.
Right.
Because I see that in my own husband, that people will use him.
Right. And Scott has children, myself, and friends who are telling him, you will not change. You will not change from who you are and what you stand for. We're going to do well. We're going to see the talk for what it is, know that there are people who absolutely love us and support us 100%, and there's the people who wish that we would just be off of the planet and not anywhere around. And I'm okay with that.
But people can be cruel.
Very cruel. Yep.
And when they go after our kids because of the jobs we do, I don't know if it's the female part of me that says this isn't worth it. I'm done. And maybe men are stronger for it.
Yeah.
But when they go after our kids, are there any lines that you have told him, you do not let somebody cross this line or we have to be done?
Yeah.
Is there anything like that?
I don't think I needed to say any of those because I think Scott feels very strongly. The kids are off limits.
When
What's
people
going
say
on,
awful
but-
things about him, does that hurt you?
Nope, because they have their opinions. They really have their opinions, and I can't change it. I can't change it. What excites me is going around the state, because I do want to travel with Scott around the state and meet new people. I do enjoy meeting people.
Well, you're going to get thrust into a light
Yes.
like you've
Yep.
never known before.
Yep.
This is way
Yep.
different than the Senate.
It is, and thank goodness. I think it's a whole nother story.
So if I say, Mary Jensen says she's ready for this, that's a true statement?
Absolutely, you can say that.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
this.
Well, thank you.